Hello there, Kevin the Kevlar here. So Destiny 2 got released into the wild a few days ago, and many people are thinking that it's already a success like the first game was. However, while not saying so on my YouTube channel, I've been thinking for a while that the game was actually going to flop sales-wise. And we actually did indeed get something of a confirmation that it did. Now before we continue, the first part of this video is going to show just how bad it sold, and how I got to that conclusion. The second part of this video is going to be about what it means for you, the player, and why I think it failed. So jump on the time and screen if you just want to see that. So Eurogamer.net has let it leak with the confirmation that physical Destiny 2 launch sales in the UK are only 42% as large as Destiny 1 launch sales there, selling 175,000 units as opposed to Destiny 1's 417,000 units. The UK is pretty reflective of the whole world, meaning that worldwide Destiny 2's physical sales are almost certainly within just 40 to 44% of Destiny 1's launch sales. We're going to assume it's 42% for this video though. This may seem really shocking at first, but there is a lot of evidence to back up this report. We know courtesy of VG charts that Destiny 2 consistently for many weeks had only roughly 25% as many pre-orders as Destiny 1 did during the same time frame, including the most recent report as well. And Bungie themselves gave some evidence of Destiny 2's poor sales as well. It was reported recently that Destiny 2 had 1.2 million concurrent players at once by Bungie on their blog, which sounds like a lot at first. However, do a little research and you'll discover that Bungie also confirmed almost 3 years ago that Destiny 1, 1 month after launch, when there were way less players playing compared to its launch, still had 3.2 million daily users. Now back to Destiny 2's numbers. We know that games typically have 1.5 to 1.8 times as many daily players as peak players for a given day, meaning that Destiny 2 almost certainly had between 1.8 million to 2.16 million daily players at launch, compared to 3.2 million daily players in Destiny 1 1 month after launch when a great amount of its players were no longer playing anymore. Now before we continue, be advised, this is about to get even more mathy. So next, let's find out just how well Destiny 1 sold originally. So physical units of Destiny combined hit 4,334,393 units at launch, which is known to us courtesy of VG charts. And yes, I know, full disclaimer, I know VG charts isn't fully, truly, 100% completely accurate, but they're pretty close, so we're gonna roll with this number. So most people would end the number here saying that it's impossible to find out digital sales. But you see, I am not most people. We actually have a way of discovering how many digital sales a newly released AAA game on console receives, thanks to Sony and VG charts. So back when Horizon Zero Dawn originally released, Sony disclosed that at the 2-week mark it had sold 2.6 million units including digital sales. Big mistake on their part because that gave us some solid evidence, everything we need to know to find out what the digital sales rate is. Thanks to VG charts, and yes, I know I'm saying that a lot, we know that Horizon Zero Dawn sold roughly 2,198,000 physical units 2 weeks after launch, meaning that 18.289% of its physical sales represents how many digital sales it got. Even better, Sony made the same mistake with Uncharted 4. It received 2.7 million sales in its launch week and sold 2,256,000 physical units in that time, meaning that its rate is 19.681%, which is also pretty damn consistent with Horizon. Now we just average those out and voila! The average rate for a new AAA game's digital sales at launch is 18.985% of its physical sales. So with that in mind, we know that Destiny 1 sold roughly 5,127,277 units at launch counting digital sales. Give or take, it's a rough estimate. We'll round down just a tad and say it's 5,157,000 units. So with that in mind, at the 42% rate as well, we can say that Destiny 2 at launch on console, including digital sales, has sold roughly 2,165,940 copies at launch. For reference, that's just an insanely tiny amount more than what just the PS4 version of Destiny 1 alone sold at launch. And it stacks up rather well. Remember that earlier stat I said where 1.5 to 1.8 as many concurrent players is oftentimes the daily users for a game? Well, that number again means anywhere from 1.8 million to 2.16 million, which means that the rate is 100% completely, perfectly in line with Destiny 2's sales that I discovered here. Coincidence? I think not! But anyways, now let's find out what the PC version will most likely sell at its launch. So first up, we know that the PC versions of games that come out at about the same time as the PS4 version sell about 50% as well, give or take, as the PS4 version's physical sales. We know that the PS4 version of Destiny 1 at launch took home 62.9% of sales when stacked against Xbox One, and that rate is likely similar with Destiny 2. So we'll just use 63% because, rounding. So, if the physical retail sales of Destiny 2 are 42% of Destiny 1's physical sales, and if the PS4 version sales are roughly 2/3 of that, then Destiny 2 on PS4 has sold roughly 1,201,000 copies worldwide at launch, physically speaking. Meaning that Destiny 2 on PC will most likely sell around 600,000 copies at launch, bringing Destiny 2's grand total at launch between the Xbox One, PS4, and upcoming PC version together at 2,800,000 units, counting digital. This would mean that Destiny 2's grand launch total will most likely be 54% as large as Destiny 1's sales at launch. We also have the ability to calculate how much money roughly that the game has made with launch sales, not counting microtransactions or expansion purchases. In regards to physical copies of the games, or games just in general for AAA games, publishers get $38 for every single $60 game sold. This is because they must pay $7 to the platform holder, which is in this case Microsoft or Sony, $3 for shipping to retail stores, and $12 to the stores that sell the game, such as Best Buy, GameStop, Target, Walmart, etc., etc., etc. For digital copies, they must spend only $7 in paying royalties to Microsoft or Sony. Thus, in regards to console sales, AAA games at launch take in roughly $40.50 for revenue on console. On PC, Activision gets to keep all the money essentially, seeing as it'll be sold on their own service, so in total revenue thus far then, the game will have made roughly $124 million. That doesn't sound too bad, right? That'd be a huge success for a lot of games after all. The problem is that the original Destiny had a budget of roughly $500 million, the largest budget for a game ever. I won't calculate how much Destiny made at its launch, but it apparently was estimated to have been close to make back its budget very soon after launch. That was in large part due to the expansions being sold too. Destiny 2's budget is surely less than that, however, yes, but it's still going to be quite massive. It's tough to tell for sure without incredibly in-depth analysis, but it's almost certainly over the $200 million mark, and could potentially even be as high as $300 million, or even more possibly. There's also the fact as well that many less people will be buying the DLC in general in Destiny 2 than in Destiny 1, and that isn't exactly helping things in Destiny 2's favor. Furthermore, Destiny 2's microtransactions, I don't believe we'll be able to close the gap on sales for them, as the gap is just way too wide, way too large. And again, it's difficult to say, and very hard if not impossible to calculate at this point, especially seeing as how we have no idea for sure, at least for sure, what they're going to do for pricing for future expansions and stuff, and other microtransaction things they might begin, etc., etc. But it seems likely that Destiny 2 will never even make back 3/4 of its budget. So Destiny 2 at launch will most likely sell only 53% as well as Destiny 1, and will almost certainly lose millions of dollars. But what exactly does this mean for you? Well, a lot of things actually. First up, in response to Destiny 2's arguably catastrophically bad sales, Bungie is going to do one of two things almost certainly. I'd say that there's a 20% chance that option A occurs. And now option A is when Bungie decides to make the game much more consumer friendly in a bid to make everybody buy it. For example, they tone down the microtransactions and make shaders not temporary any longer, as well as making all future DLC be either very cheap or possibly even free as part of large official updates for the game. Now, if option A is like the light side of the force, option B is definitely the dark side, and sadly it's infinitely more likely to happen. I'd say there's an 80% chance of it happening. What's most likely to happen is that Bungie will decide to completely, 100% screw over their entire fan base at unimaginably high and unheard of levels. For example, as a hypothetical, let's just say that Bungie had a large $40 DLC planned for Destiny 2. Now what may happen as a result of these sales is that they'll cut that DLC into two halves and make each half cost $50 in an attempt to make up for the losses created by the low sales of the game. On top of that, the microtransactions will become much more egregious, with shaders being merely just the beginning of the hell that Bungie will rain upon their fans. One more thing to note too is that Bungie is trying to keep their low sales numbers under wraps as long as they humanly can, because if word gets out at an official level of any sort that the game was selling poorly, future sales of the game will likely shrink as well. That's why if Bungie gives out any more Destiny 2 related stats, it's going to be vague stats designed to make the game look like it's actually just being more successful than it actually is. It's not going to be anything concrete. They're never, ever, ever going to report anything concrete themselves. Now, why do we think that Destiny 2 failed so badly? First up, I don't think it's because of Destiny 1 also releasing on Xbox 360 and PS3. Almost all, if not extremely close to all people that bought Destiny on Xbox 360 or PS3 have surely gone on to buy a PS4 or Xbox One by now. So that excuse is not valid, I believe. What I believe is truly the reasoning as to why the game failed is a combination of several things. First off, Destiny 1's advertising was incredibly misleading and vague. Similar to No Man's Sky, after release, the game suffered loads and loads of anger and hate from players who felt that they were completely ripped off and lied to by Bungie. Many of those people were vocal about their feelings and largely decided not to buy Destiny 2. In similar fashion, there are tons and tons of gamers out there that play only single-player games generally, and were led to believe that Destiny would have an unimaginably godlike single-player campaign. After all, to them, there was absolutely no indications whatsoever at all that it wouldn't have such an amazing campaign, and it was made by the same guys that made the Halo franchise. Pretty much that entire market decided not to get Destiny 2. Furthermore, many players felt completely screwed over and betrayed by Bungie due to how they handled DLC, namely the act of finishing, or almost finishing the DLC before launch, cutting it out of the game and then selling it later with the deliberate intention of screwing over as many people as possible. Furthermore, many people felt screwed over by the implementation of microtransactions after Bungie previously said that they would never be in Destiny. Honestly, no matter what Bungie does at this point, I don't see much hope in the game after looking at the data, and the entire franchise might even end as a result, similar to what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda. In fact, I'd say that's even somewhat likely. Sorry for the video, by the way. I mean, unless you hate Bungie, in which case you might like this video a lot, but this is also the gaming industry after all. I do want to throw this out there, and crazier things have happened than a game doomed like this to fail, doing something miraculous. So I'm not going to say we should give tons of hope to Destiny, but maybe we should give just a little bit. Well, that's all for today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe on the channel. I'm going to try and post things more often going forward. And yeah, have a good day.